In this episode, I speak with the fabulous medical astrologer and naturopath Kira Sutherland. In this episode, we're going to dive into what astrology really is, and particularly medical astrology, which is an ancient medical system that associates various parts of the body, different diseases, foods, and herbal medicines as being under the influence of the planets and the 12 astrological signs. I asked Kira for her explanation of how that all works. How can it make any sense that the planets floating up in the sky are actually influencing us? And can it be useful when we are working with anxiety? As you'll discover, yes, it can, from a few different perspectives. Kira is first and foremost a scientist and a researcher, and so I love exploring these topics with those who can also understand very well the scientific world, because I love the integration of the two, where those two worlds meet. And so if you find that fascinating too, this is a great episode for you. You can, of course, check out Kira's work over on Instagram at Astrology of Health or astrologyofhealth.com at her website. Okay, let's go to the show. Kira, I'm so happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to see you.
So exciting to have you
I know.
here. So I wanted to start us off because you are first and foremost a scientist.
Yes.
And very proud to be so, and very much well-researched and deserving of that title. But there's also another element of understanding the world that you are very passionate about, and that is astrology. And for those who might be kind of like not quite sure about astrology, it's like they've looked at a horoscope and, hey, anyone can relate to this, all that stuff.
Yeah.
How do we begin to just give them some context to orient them to the complexity of what astrology really is?
Wow. That is a big question, Georgie. So look, astrology is not about what you read in the newspaper or in the back of a magazine, although sometimes that can be really fun. But look, astrology has been around since Babylonian times. The Egyptians were doing, it's been going on forever. And it's the idea that we're looking at, how we go into personal astrology here. There's astrology of what's going on in the sky right now, but there's also how we apply it to ourselves. So if we're going to talk natal astrology or how it applies to ourselves, again, this has been going on for thousands of years. The way I explain it to clients is if you looked up at the heavens the moment you were born, the moment you took your first breath, you were looking at kind of the blueprint of where the planets are as they've been divided up through the 12 astrological signs. And that's a whole nother lecture about how we got to that whole ecliptic in the sky, but I won't go there. So to me, it's like this energetic or mathematical blueprint of where everything was in the sky the moment you incarnated, if that's the word you want to use, or were born. And it's kind of your energetic mathematical, it is because it's done mathematically, mathematical makeup of who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, things, if we're going to get esoteric here, things we've chosen to kind of work with in this lifetime. I mean, it's, where do I even go with that? It's hard to explain. Yeah.
How do you logic the idea that the moon up there or the like Venus and Saturn are having an impact on me and my ideas and my thoughts and my feelings?
Well, if we take the moon, which is our satellite off of planet Earth, which is actually not very far away if we're talking about the rest of our solar system, and we know that the moon has, energetic pull. We know it shifts the tides. We know different animals do different things, whether it's the dark of the moon or the the full moon. A lot of animals are cyclical towards lunar cycles. I think that's where it starts. And that was probably the beginning of, hey, this might work for me, is the fact that, We hold fluids differently on the planet, depending on where, the size of the moon. And then you think, well, if that is really small, what about these massive things in the sky? And are they also having an energetic pull? And I'll be honest, I come from a really sciencey background. I'm born of two scientists as well. And a lot of people first study astrology because they kind of want to disprove it. They're like, oh, I'm going to read about this because it's just bullshit. And, I'm not into it. And then the kind of further you get into it, the more and more you're like, oh my God, how is this accurate? Or how is it this symbolic of what is going on in my life? And, there's so much science in the world that's tangible, but if you take science really far and you get into quantum physics, that gets into universal energy and goes into the whole paradigm of what's going on and how things influence us as well. So I guess not everything can be explained by reductionistic theory. And studying it officially in my 20s was just kind of mind-blowing for me.
Wow, I'm loving this conversation so much. I think for me, it's astrology is another way of appreciating the infinite complexity of this universe, that we can't explain everything. And we know that there are frequencies, for example, of sound that dogs can pick up that human beings cannot. So if there are sound frequencies that are buzzing around that we don't necessarily feel aware of, who's to say there aren't other energies or vibrations zooming around that we're just not aware of when our eyes are open, but something like astrology could potentially help explain, such as the influence of the planet Saturn on our, our little beings and our lives.
And one of the beautiful things about astrology is it's very cyclical. It's all about how cycles in your body or how cycles in the universe are affecting you. And it gives you these beautiful timelines. So it's almost like this architecture, as I said, it's this blueprint to help understand yourself better, or understand maybe why you process. It's psychologists aren't going to want me to call it psychology, but there's a whole side to astrology that helps you concept and understand who you are and how you maybe process emotions or mental thoughts differently to somebody else. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts it gives people is sometimes we get so wound up in our own stuff and we get stressed out, or we have anxiety, or something triggers us to be stressed that doesn't trigger other people. But then if you learn enough about your astrology, you're like, oh, okay, I process these things this way, which is why I'm more upset than somebody else, or why, I don't know, it for me, it gives me a better understanding of who I am, and I'm more, it actually makes me be gentler on myself. I can accept myself and all my faults, not faults, but all my, what I perceive as, weaknesses and faults better. And it also helps me be much less critical of other people because we're not all the same. You and I are going to approach things really differently, the same stressor. And my way isn't the only right way. And it gives me some dialogue as to why you would do something different with the same stress.
Yes, understood. I had a astrology reading, a quite in-depth one, halfway through last year, and I found it to be very much what you said, that validation of everything she said. I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the only surprising things were confirmations of what I already knew, but was not fully ready to step into. For example, she told me that I am much better not living in the city where I was born, and I'm more in alignment in other places. And this traveling around for me and being in different parts of the world, and not always with my family and the friends I grew up with, has been a transition in my life, and something I wasn't fully ready to go, okay, yes, this is me now, because I'm like, am I doing it wrong? Should I be doing it like them? And it was that helpful shift, even just that part of it, to be like, okay, no, this is actually who I'm meant to be. And actually it does feel right. It's just that fear of, oh, I should be doing what the rest of the crowd are doing, that I think can come into it. So that's where I found astrology incredibly beneficial for me as well.
Yeah. And I mean, there's people who are absolute, in their chart, you would go, this is a homebody chart. This is a chart that doesn't want to move far from home and is going to get all their nourishment from close friends and family. And then you have another person's chart that it's like, you need to be adventuring and exploring both physically, but, spiritually, mentally. And if you're not doing that, that's where you might fall into some depression or stress or have more anxiety, because you're not it's the idea astrologically that it's giving you that blueprint of not how to live your best life, but yeah, your little checks and balances of what nourishes, the way I would say it is, what better nourishes your soul that you might not understand.
Beautiful. And so as we think of anxiety, I often say, Kira, that it's like you're driving on the highway of your life. And as you kind of veer to the side, there's those bumps that you hit and they make that really loud noise, the wheels of the car.
Yeah.
And that is anxiety. And it's often, particularly when it's really loud and it's really chronic and ongoing and it's trying to get our attention in some way, it's just a signifier that something is out of balance. And that can be health-wise. That could be like your thyroid. It could be your hormones. It could be your gut health, but often there is a component to how we're living our lives and we're trying to fit ourselves into the box of society or someone else's expectations. And I can see astrology being such a powerful tool to help us, give us more clues, like what other changes can I make? What other little adjustments are not in alignment for me?
Yeah, and it lets you reflect on who you are. I mean, when you go see someone about it, or if you read books about it, it allows you to kind of, process who you are and what your makeup is. And when you learn things, when we learn things about ourselves, whether we're seeing a counselor or a naturopath or whoever, it's that insight that helps us make us feel more stable. And that's what's beautiful. And then, I mean, the part of astrology that I actually specialize in is medical astrology, which is a whole nother thing in itself, just to freak everyone out. So if you go back again, you go back to, Egyptian times, we have been looking at people's astrological makeup and how it influences our physical health. This is like we have traditional Chinese medicine and they have the 5-element theory and all your meridians, or we have Ayurvedic medicine and the doshas and the 5 elements. And in the West, where was this system? We had it, and it was part of medicine until a few hundred years ago. We actually taught medical astrology to doctors. And yes, some things needed to go the wayside, like bloodletting and things like that in medicine. But medical astrology also got thrown out around that time. And again, it's not the be-all to end-all, but it shows it's got 4 elements and heat and cold, and it helps us look at how the body is, how we're each different in our body and how we operate. And again, you'll see people that are much more, oh my gosh, medical astrology, you can see, when people are more prone to anxiety than others, or what parts of their life might actually even trigger. Let me go back to the nervous system rather than saying anxiety. Why some people have a high wired nervous system versus others, or why people's nerves and emotions get more intertwined than some. You can actually see that. And then think about, in medical astrology, the nice thing is you might see it where it's at, but you can also look in the part of the chart where you're finding that and think about the things that'll nourish that part of that person as well. Because I'm getting really technical here, but we divide the chart up into these little pieces of a pie, and they're all about different areas of our life. So you can have these hints as to how to nourish someone on a mind, body, emotional level, all on these different, you get all the layers at once.
And that can look different for different people, right?
Absolutely. Like you might get stressed and that triggers your digestive system. Some people we know the nervous system and the digestive system are totally intertwined, but some people will be more reactive to than others. Whereas some people, it might more trigger headaches and migraines rather than digestive system. And you can actually see that. You can see which areas are more under pressure for people. So it's not like you can't diagnose. I would never say I diagnose anything, but it's just this great hint as to where the pressure points are in someone's life, even without knowing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which gives you
those
those
two out there. Is that too out there?
That's not too out there at all. I mean,
good.
so like I will confess, but with you know, a whole lot of respect for it as well, that as we go through naturopathy and studying, we learn about iridology as well, which is reading iris, and which is the colored part of your eye for those listening. And we can see like different patterns in the nerve fibers that can indicate certain tendencies. It's not a diagnostic tool, but it does help point us in the right direction. And I've always found it, I mean, I don't use it with my clients now, but I do sometimes pull it out from time to time when I meet people, because I just find it so fascinating. It's always spot on.
Well, there's all these different systems, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine, Western medical astrology, Ayurveda, iridology, tongue diagnosis, hand, fingernail. There's all these things to help give you hints as to how the body is expressing itself physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And nothing is a diagnosis per se, but yeah, great hints.
And see, I love us drawing the connection, because for me, I can understand somehow how the nerves in the iris might reflect the body, because they're attached to the body and there's like, they're possibly translating information. But the idea that, I don't know exactly how medical astrology works, so please forgive me, but the idea of like what Venus is doing is like giving me a headache is pretty...
It's a crazy thought.
It's crazy, but I can make the connection with, like we said, like the impact of the moon on the tides and bodies of water, and that kind of thing starts to help us make sense of it, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just one of these things that the more you do it, the more you look at it, the more you reflect on it. Again, it's showing you the symbolism of the universe and how it's all affecting us. And again, had I not been doing it for the last 25 years, I would be like, what are you talking about? That is so bizarre. I mean, I run a totally separate life. I run this naturopathy, sports nutrition side of myself. And then I run this naturopathy, medical astrology side. And I've kept them separate because some people can't handle it. And I get it. It's whatever people can come to. It doesn't mean in the background I'm not always slightly processing people through, especially like the elements, or what's their constitution like, or if you look at body types, we have we go at back in medicine or science, we look at endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph body types, and then the combination of all those body types, and those are all from our embryonic stage of development. And how those then influence, there's research starting to look at, depending on your body type, how that influences different hormones, or, certain body types are more sensitive to dopamine and others are more sensitive to estrogen or testosterone. And, there's this whole cascade of how our bodies operate. I think that we don't know it all by any means. So whatever system is working to help you get a handle on it, I think is a good system.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think just on the body type thing, one element that I found quite liberating in myself was growing up, seeing magazines and health and wellness, and fitness magazines, and they're like, do these exercises to lose belly fat and get abs and all of that.
Yes.
To learn that there are certain body types, the mesomorphs, that just are naturally the muscular, lean ones. And it's easy in a sense for them to be that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there are, you're not seeing my full body. I'm a body type. I'm tall, I'm strong. I put on muscle easily. I put on body fat easily. There's no amount of sit-ups. There's no amount of being underweight where I will ever have a six-pack of abs. That's just not my body type. It will never be like that. And I love watching on social media I love watching health influencers, people, or these women that are like, oh, I had my 5 babies and I just saw this one. I had 5 babies and my stomach was poochy and this is how I got my 6-pack back. And I'm like, no, you're a mesomorph. That's how you got your 6-pack back.
Exactly. Which, I mean, just puts such unfair pressure on people as well. And I am most definitely not a mesomorph. I don't know if I'm endo or ecto. I think endo.
We're a combination of them, right?
Yeah.
Like you might actually be like, there's systems that look at it where there's those three, but then there's meso, endo, meso, ecto. So yeah, I'm a combination of endo and ecto. You might be the same as me. Yeah.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah.
And so, just knowing these things takes that pressure off ourselves. Like, I don't have to ask that question of myself. Where are my super muscular arms, shoulders, and abs? Like, it doesn't matter. That's just not how my body is designed.
No.
And that becomes self-acceptance again.
Well, and with the media, with what especially women are put under stress wise. I mean, everybody is put under stress wise around body shape and type and what we're supposed to look like. It's so hard to not have that anxiety or we working on that acceptance. We are so hard on ourselves.
Totally. Another one I used to always beat myself up for was my natural circadian rhythm. I'm a late person. Like my bedtime is late. It's 11 or 12 p.m. 12 a.m. That is just how my body wants to sleep. And I don't want to get up super early. No. And I'm not a morning person either. And to have learnt that there's a genetic influence there, and that is how my chemical makeup is, makes it so much easier to just live my life and not feel like, oh, I failed again because I didn't go to bed at 9 p.m.
Well, and your stress hormones, if you actually live to your correct circadian rhythm, and if you have endo, you're probably, like I said, endo, ecto, the endo wants to sleep in and wants to stay up late, and they're actually better off exercising later in the afternoon rather than doing a HIIT class first thing in the morning and jamming up their cortisol levels. That's not going to work for a lot of people. And it's a lot of people with the body types that easily put on body weight or body fat are actually more endo based. And again, not getting up earlier in the morning, doing their exercise later is going to be a lot better for them.
Yeah. And that's so interesting. I mean, Kira, you must, working with the clientele that you do, you must see a few of those high functioning anxiety types, the high achievers, the perfectionists.
Oh yeah.
Are there any patterns that you notice with these people in terms of their exercise routine or the way that they take care of themselves?
Ooh.
Was everyone different? I suppose what I'm getting at there is, do you notice that a lot of your people are potentially over exercising, maybe not listening to their bodies enough, or finding it hard to exercise in the first place?
Yeah. So to clarify, I'm a sports nutritionist as well as a naturopath. So and I know you know that, but so I see a lot of athletes, and I see from teenagers to mature age, but hardcore athletes, especially because I focus a lot on endurance sport, like marathons, half marathons, crazy adventure racing, Ironman triathlon, and habitually, that's probably not the right word, but typically you have a lot of type A personalities driving to do achievement driven sport like that. And yeah, absolutely. You see people, overtraining is an enormous thing, or, is it so much overtraining? It's more that they're not resting and recovering and eating enough for the volume of training they're asking for their body. They will continue to push because that's what society has told us to do. And then, when we fall into overtraining, it actually makes your sleep worse and your recovery worse. Your anxiety can be higher, and people don't realize the more exercise, actually, the harder it is for your body to recover. Did that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, I see it very similarly in the people I work with. I can't say I've worked with a a lot of athletes,
Hmm.
but what I see is similar in that not that it's a huge physical muscular output of energy, but it's a huge mental output of energy, because we're expecting ourselves to work crazy hours, and if it's not paid, career-based work, it's also then the mental load of looking after a family and managing a house renovation and moving house and all the things that happen in life. And we just don't acknowledge how much that our bodies need our support to be able to keep up with that load. I mean, gosh,
how much rest we need.
Sometimes I think about what it would have been like to be, I don't know, and maybe I'm glorifying it, but like alive in the age when we were just writing letters to one another, and you would have to, I can't do any work this week until I get the response back from that letter, in another 7 days, and how slow things were in a way. And now we're just ping, 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 to-do list, task, action, so much information coming at us, and our brains need the nurturing and the support nutritionally.
Yeah. And the problem now is when we go for downtime, what do? We either go and binge watch something on Netflix, or even worse, we scroll on our phone and we're getting all these dopamine hits, but then it's, suppressing our circadian rhythms, and we won't have to go into the whole thing of what the phone does to us. But it's tricky. It's really tricky. And again, often I'm asking people to remember to take more time out, or take more time in. Luckily, athletes at least are usually in nature, unless they're in a gym setting. But allowing to have days off and not training, or the thing I fall into the worst, not I personally, but me personally, sorry, my language is going out the window. One of the things I'm constantly doing is trying to get people to eat enough food to support the output of what they're doing in daily life. We're so, again, entwined into this, what do I look like? What does society think I should look like? And people are asking these enormous things of their body sports-wise, and then not actually even giving it fuel. Whereas we would never, ever in a million years try to drive our car without fuel, because we know it's not going to go anywhere. But we push and push these bodies, and then we don't allow that rejuvenation and the refueling to happen.
And I would say that's definitely a way that our car that we're driving on the highway of our life can start to go off to the side. That's the out of balance that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
with that, for sure.
Flat tires.
And so this not eating enough, I would say that's from that deeply ingrained, deeply embedded, particularly for women, element in our brain of, well, if I eat less, if I do forget lunch, yes, I'm eating less, I'm losing weight, I'm in a calorie deficit.
But what people don't realize is then your cortisol or your stress hormones are getting higher and higher and higher. And that eventually will cause weight gain. Too much high cortisol for too long, the body actually will stop wanting to lose body fat. It will start suppressing reproductive hormones. It runs into that whole cascade. And so many women, especially, but everybody, are running that fine line of, is it helping versus is it suppressing? And, high cortisol, high stress, and adrenal hormones is always going to be, tipping us more towards anxiety as well.
Yeah. And so if someone comes to you and you notice that they're particularly more of that type, and their cortisol is looking quite high, is there like a fun thing we can look up in our own charts or something, Kira, to see? Yeah, like, it's very easy to Google, your moon sign, your rising, if you know your birth time. And you can even get your birth chart up on astrodienst.com.
Or just astro.com will lead you to AstroDienst now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that helpful piece of information
anymore.
Is that the chart we could see medical stuff through, the birth chart?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to pull it up and read anything medically. That takes reading a medical astrology book or talking to someone who does it. But yeah, absolutely. you know, everybody knows their sun sign, right? That's what everyone talks about. Oh, you're a Leo, you're a Scorpio, you know, whenever the sun was when you were born, like, but looking up your moon sign, I think, is phenomenal. And even if you don't know your time of birth, the moon only changes signs every kind of 2.5 days. So even without a time, you probably can locate where your moon is. And your moon is your emotions. It's your how you nourish yourself. I love to say it's how you feed your soul, or it's your soul food. But the moon is also correlated to food. It's yeah, if you think about I mean, oh my God, where am I going to go with this? The moon rules in medical astrology, the moon rules the breasts because they are a nourishing organ, how babies get nourishment. But the moon also rules the stomach and digestion, yet the moon rules your emotions. And so you go, oh, look at this. Food likes and dislikes associated with the moon, plus the moon's connected to emotions. And you pair those up together and you get this whole, you know, where we get our emotional links to food and eating and also, you know, activities that would maybe nourish us rather than food. But it's, yeah, they're highly connected. So I love looking at people's moon signs. It will tell me a lot about how they like to eat, or the style that they eat in, or how they cook, or the activities they want to be doing while they're eating. It will tell me if their digestion's running hot or cold, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's really fun.
Do you store this information in your brain, Kira, or do you have to look it up? Like, if I was like, I'm a Virgo moon, for example, if we just go off the do you know about that just from me? Okay.
So let me also say the moon rules cycles and rhythms of the body. It's connected to the female reproductive cycle as well. So that's pertinent for you. Or hormone cycles, we should say, for people that menstruate. But the moon also rules our habits and our rituals. And so we kind of package all that up together. And then we look at, okay, you're a Virgo moon, which I love. A lot of naturopaths are Virgo moon or Virgo sun. Yeah. So Virgo is, so for everybody that doesn't know, it's an earth sign. And it's also what we call a mutable sign, which means it's a little bit changeable. It can be influenced. It's not this stubborn, stuck kind of energy. There's other signs that are more stubborn. It's going to take on more information and then process and you know, change their concepts of stuff. But Virgo rules analysis, and it rules assessment, and it rules perfection of things. It's all about making everything, it's about assimilating information and making things better. And then in medical astrology, Virgo rules the small intestines, which is the organ that helps us assimilate the foods we eat and turn it into who we are. So it's this perfecting, or, you know, assimilating organ as well. And it has a rulership of the nervous system. Okay. And it, you know, Virgo, lots to do with the pancreas, blood sugar levels, but also a lot to do with, I would say, the vagal nerve. So that whole gut-brain axis, vagal nerve, stress and anxiety really impacts the digestive system. So without knowing anything about your health history,
well, we know there's anxiety in there. So.
Yes. And so being a Virgo moon makes you more prone. It's a more sign. It's a sign that's more prone to anxiety than other signs. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder, we should test this. Just, you know, the part of me that's like you, where I want to test this astrology thing. I wonder what proportion of my audience are Virgos, and how much that was like useful information for at least, like, I don't know, 40% of listeners, because there's either they're a Virgo sun, or maybe you've got a Virgo somewhere else in your chart.
Yeah. So, well, could be Virgo sun, could be Virgo moon, could be what we call a rising sign, or your ascendant, which is actually, you need your birth time for that, but it's knowing what constellation was actually rising in the east the moment you were born.
I was a Virgo. I'm a Virgo rising as well.
Oh, you're a double Virgo.
Yeah. And then the
Mm.
Taurus sun. So that's
Yeah.
that's the stubborn part there.
Yeah. 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 So it's, one of the beautiful things about that is, yes, there's regular naturopathy in how to treat you, but knowing you have this strong Virgo, I also know, like if you came, and like, again, I'm not treating you, but if you came to me with digestive trouble, so this is how I use medical astrology. Somebody shows up with terrible bloating and gas and digestive trouble and maybe diarrhea sometimes, but if they travel, they get constipation and upset small intestine all the time. Knowing they're a Virgo, I know, yes, I have to go after their digestive system, the small intestines, likely to food sensitivities and allergies. But I know that underneath that, I must treat their nervous system. So even if you didn't say you had anxiety, if you go, oh, I have all this digestive trouble, as a Virgo, the first thing I'm going to do is go for your nervous system, because Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury, which rules the nervous system. And it also rules the lungs. So it's about doing breath work to also calm down that nervous system. But yeah, treating the nervous system then treats your whole underlying digestive system.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
More so than other signs. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any other signs you would say you think of as more of that nervous system tendency sign potentially?
Yeah, Gemini. So Gemini is also ruled by the planet Mercury, and they really, a lot of nervous system stuff, a lot of lung stuff for them as well.
Great. So
and sensitivities. Yeah.
Hello to all our Geminis and Virgos listening.
Yeah.
So you say I'd be going for the nervous system. I love that. It sounds like you're going for the jugular. Tell me, Kira, what do you think of in that approach of I'm going for the nervous system? What kind of tools do you tend to work with people?
I love activities because it actually gives somebody something to do rather than always just to take.
Yeah.
So breath work, I would really go for to, vagal nerve tone, be it singing, gargling, humming, all those different things that, even, this is going to sound really weird and very unnaturopathic, but even gum chewing calms the vagus nerve. It tones the vagus nerve. And a lot of people, again, this is society. Oh my God, gum chewing is, I'm American born, so I can go after this one. Oh my God, it's so disgusting. Gum chewing, it actually calms people down. And it was an interesting thing to learn that. And again, let go of, if you're one of those people who loves chewing gum, it might be helping with that stress. What else do I do?
That's partly from because it's like mimicking digestion.
Yeah.
Chewing, your body's thinking, okay, so we're preparing for food now, salivation. So we're going into the parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system instead of alpha.
And I think somehow connected to the TMJ area as well, where we hold so much stress and then it releases it. Nervous system, foods, magnesium, like you wanting what I like. Yeah, I would go, nutritionally, fish oils or linseed oil if people are plant-based, your omega-3s, your good fats to nourish those nerves. There's herbs I would use for nerves, but these are more the calming digestive nervous system herbs. What else do I do? My favorite trick is for when people get really stressed, and you might already talk to people about this, is soda water.
Oh,
have you heard about using soda water? Did we have this chat when we met? No.
So soda water.
So I learned this from somebody else who actually was a Gemini who had massive anxiety and panic attacks. Soda water is drinking carbon dioxide. And when we get stressed, if we have a panic attack, people get made to breathe into a bag to increase carbon dioxide, because, when we're stressed, you have that increase of oxygen, which makes us feel even more stressed. And it's like Wim Hof style breathing massively increases your carbon dioxide, and that's what makes us feel really calm, right? So the idea is, by drinking bubbled water, not soda, but by drinking like soda water or even sparkling mineral water, you're drinking carbon dioxide, and actually the act of the bubbles going through the chest tends to feel really open and expansive for people through that whole kind of heart area. But my understanding is that that carbon dioxide ends up in the body as well to an extent and helps just to calm us down. And it's one of my favorite things for people that are really anxious, because you can carry, I normally have a bubble water sitting here. You can carry around a bottle of soda water as your like little security blanket, and nobody knows that that's your anxious security blanket, but it is.
Wow, I love that. I mean, I suppose too, there's a slight bitterness to the water too, very, very slight, that might promote some salivation as well, which is also going to activate the vagus nerve. I would often go with like lemon juice or apple cider vinegar, but maybe we can step things up with some soda water too. I love that.
And a lot of people that are naturally a bit anxious, I find, tend to love bubbled water. They will naturally go for it without knowing. It might be, you know, coming down. No, there is no clinical research I have to show you exactly that works or whatever. But I did have a big chat to a professor who's very into breath work, and I'm like, hypothetically, this is possible. And then he was like, yeah, absolutely. If you would be absorbing that carbon dioxide through the digestive system.
Interesting. I thought, and here I was thinking, I just like drinking sparkling water to be a bit fancy.
That too. It does make you feel fancy. It does. I love it. I have a soda stream at home, and if I go out to a restaurant, I will always, you have to have that treat, right?
Absolutely. Do you have a preferred style of breath work for people, or like, do you guide people into any specific kind of breath work? Do you say like, go do this type, or the 4-box breathing or anything like that?
Yeah, I kind of always give a few recommendations, because I find some people love Wim Hof style breathing, but then other people hate the holding on the out breath. Other people would prefer Buteyko or alternate nostril breathing. So I kind of give a few options. Box breathing, I give a few options, and I kind of say whatever works, as long as you're slowing down and doing the breath work, it's gonna be having that impact. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to approach it. It's like, try everything. There's so many different ways to breathe. Why not experiment with them all and see what technique is working for you and what's going to be able to weave into your lifestyle. Because what's so great about breath work is that we're always able to breathe. It's always there. It's there in the middle of the night. It's there at 3 a.m. It's there on a airplane. It's there at your work desk. Like, it's always available.
And it's free once you know how to do it. And most styles of breathing, you can watch YouTube, free videos on YouTube for it, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of things around. I think we just have to be careful sometimes with the elongated, like the 40-minute, 30-minute plus holotropic breathing. Have you heard of that? You know, where
I don't have time for that.
Sometimes we need some kind of support with those ones. So I'd just be, just word of caution because I know what's out there. Kira, there's a lot out there. So just be careful, guys, if you're watching something that's like, beyond just a sort of 10-15 minutes. Because sometimes we need that extra support as well. So interesting. Going back to the TMJ as well, there's a place in Bali where you can get, I'm sure there's a few, but they massage inside your mouth to massage the TMJ. They put gloves on and they're going in. It feels so good. It's
Oh, really? Oh, I have a chiropractor who loves getting in there. It does not feel good.
Well, no, sorry. I will say it feels good afterwards. Incredibly painful, especially if you've had years of clenching your jaw. But jaw clenching is an interesting one because we're not always conscious of it. The only technique I've really heard, other than obviously magnesium, and there's certain ways we can support our nervous system, but the only real technique I've heard people talk about, especially if it's like nighttime clenching, is to just consciously stop it, like consciously relax your jaw and keep remembering to do that. Is there anything?
I'm trying to do it as you're talking. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? There's different types of massage. I mean, self-massage on the TMJ is amazing. And there's, back years and years and years ago, I was studying a type of massage called craniosacral. It's actually more done by osteopaths. And they actually had you massage, but you kind of find the TMJ, hold, and slow. You can't hurt yourself doing this. And slowly, you more stretch the skin and just subtly hold it downwards. And you can almost feel everything slightly kind of move eventually. Like find the TMJ.
How would we describe where the TMJ is for people who are listening? It's like that. It's part of your jaw. It's slightly
the
above.
big meaty bit right there. It's kind of where the jaw connects to itself, like where the two upper and lower jaw. So if you get your fingers on it and open, it'll really pop outwards as you open your jaw. But just hold there, and then just 10 grams of pressure, pull downwards.
Yeah.
But then just hold it. And so you can feel the muscle slowly kind of unwind. That's what I do for TMJ.
You can. We both just did it then. That feels good.
And if you stop talking while it happens, which of course you and I haven't done, I do that while I watch TV.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
There's so many things we can just weave into our lifestyle as well that can be, I think I see life is this constant barrage of stressful events and potential triggers. And if we are, for want of a better word, fighting back with regular, oh yes, I'm at the traffic lights. Now I'm going to take a nice, a four count breath in and hold for 7, out for 8. Bringing in those moments, we can make a really big difference.
Huge. I think my biggest one is probably walking. Yeah. Exercise and walking. Getting outside and just that decompression.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Not necessarily running. Don't get me wrong. I would love to always be out on a run, but a lot of times I actually do the walk in nature for that whole other level of de-stressing.
Do you, when you're on these walks, bring your headphones along? Are you listening to something, or do you ever just go without a phone, without anything?
I will walk with nothing, but I get bored.
Yeah.
I usually walk with friends or my daughter. And so I'm having a friend decompression, and usually the talking that happens on walks is so therapeutic. But if I'm by myself, I'm a headphones, but I am only music.
That's a great boundary. And I mean that more in the sense of just like one moment of, or like 20 minutes or 30 minutes of not consuming information.
Yeah. And everyone's always like, oh, I watched this great podcast, or I listened to this podcast, this audiobook, or whatever. And I've tried to exercise to like things I'm supposed to be learning. And I'm like, that overwhelms me. And then I'm 5 minutes down the road and I'm like, I haven't listened to a thing. Yeah. So for me, I make playlists. I'm old enough that I used to make mixtapes. Back, if any listener remembers making mixtapes or CDs. So I still will make myself a mixed playlist, on Spotify. I'm there. I make a playlist for the year. Like I literally title it. I haven't done it yet for 2023. I usually wait until the Chinese New Year. So I need to do it in the next week or two. And make a playlist, and I'll go back and grab old feel-good songs to really like. I have an almost 17-year-old daughter. I'm up on what people are listening to now, and so I have this weird. If people listen to the mixes, they're like, "You have the weirdest music taste," but so that you can have, and I'll do like 200 songs in a playlist.
Okay. I'm like, for the whole year, like you listen to the same playlist, but
no, I make other playlists too, or I'll listen to people's albums, but I do this huge playlist. It's really interesting to look at what's gone on in my life, or stress-wise, what was happening and what I was more drawn to different times.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I have those playlists, Kira. I look back at some like, spring 2020 and like, I'm like, yes. Oh yes, that's what I was going through based on this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So but I think we forget to stop consuming, like you said. And it's, it's half the reason our nervous system is so wound up, right?
Unless it's the Anxiety Reset podcast you're listening to on your walk,
Yes.
because
That's different.
hopefully it's nourishing and calming you down. But I
Yeah.
think when we're constantly, consuming information, whether it is, about self-development. I mean, I'm sort of joking a bit there. Like, you do need to have breaks when you're not listening to
Yeah.
anything. But yeah, self-development we can really go deep on, or consuming the news, or the people that listen to murder mysteries stuff to calm down. I don't understand.
Yeah. That's a big thing at the moment too, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Or like, I could never wind down with those those murder mystery, like set in England, kind of really sad, miserable TV shows and things. They're just
Yeah. No, freaks me out.
there is enough stuff to stress us out. Like, I was never the person that needed to watch the horror movies.
Oh no, I can't watch horror movies. I can watch most things, but I literally, that's like a bad trigger for me is horror movies. I'm so scared.
Look, I can use my anxious mind and create enough horror movies in my own head if I go down that path. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
don't need more of that.
absolutely. Yeah. No, and I just think we don't take enough time just to be, and this will be like driving a car. Sometimes I drive my car and I purposely listen to nothing. I do nothing. I'm just trying to actually, if you think about it, fact how dangerous it is to drive a car and all the things we do in a car. But even watching then people sitting at bus stops, whatever, nobody is looking up anymore. Every single person on a bus, at a bus stop, half of them walking across the street are looking at their phone and consuming.
Yeah. And it's like there's such a pull to that. I mean, I could go on a little about this topic because I'm quite passionate about it. There's this overlay of we blame ourselves for our willpower with our phones, but equally there has to be a systemic change in terms of the way that the devices and the social media apps are created, because it is designed to capture our attention, and it's not all our fault.
No, God, no.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, but I feel hopeful that we can change that.
And I think it's that conscious walking with somebody, to decompress, because you're not on your phone when you're walking with somebody else or doing sport with somebody else.
I love that, because you're killing two birds with one stone. We like
or like cooking, cooking, not very stressful for some people, but again, being in a kitchen with somebody else and conversing and cooking, hopefully the other person isn't sitting on their phone, I think is a real, that would work astrologically for some people more than others. But there's this whole, like, I'm one of these people who I don't have time to cook half the time, but the minute I start cooking, I'm like, wow, this is de-stressing. I'm like enjoying this, because you're being present with what you're doing.
Yes, so true. And really, I think because you're doing something in the moment that requires enough focus, you can be present. You're not thinking about what happens in 10 years from now, or like, what if everything goes wrong? We're just here in this moment. Yeah. And it's creativity too, cooking.
Yeah. And actually touching food and smelling it probably activates that, helps the vagal nerve, helps parasympathetic nervous system, right?
We're back in our bodies and not up in our minds. Yeah. Beautiful tips and suggestions there, Kira. Thank you so much for sharing the time and being here and having that fun discussion with me about astrology, because
that little side bit.
I love opening that up and just asking these questions, because I think there's so much we don't understand about the world. And I think a lot of people come to me saying, I've tried everything with anxiety. I've tried everything. Well, have you? I don't know, because I'm still discovering new things. I mean, we just talked about the soda water. There are so many different techniques and supports and, deeper modalities that can support you. And I just think the best thing we can do is say, well, you don't know everything. You haven't decided and tried everything yet. You never can.
And look, astrology, to understand yourself better, which hopefully maybe helps you get a handle on why certain things give you more anxiety than other things, I think is who doesn't want to learn about themselves? Let's get real. Like, we love learning about ourselves. So why not go actually print up your chart and do a little bit of reading about who you are and that makeup. And again, for me, astrology gave me that gift of understanding a little bit more of why I am the way I am. And I actually stopped beating myself up over things with that. Oh, that irritates me about myself, these certain things. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of in my astrology. So you know what? I'm just going to accept it rather than constantly trying to, edit ourselves.
Yes. Oh my God. A quick example of that.
Yeah.
My one told me that I need to not share my stuff. And I've never liked sharing my clothes with friends. I'm just not that person.
Oh, no.
Or my sister or anyone. And I've always been shamed for that or made to feel guilty. And now I'm like, well, it's in my chart. It's just who I am. Yes. I'm sorry. I don't share my clothes.
And it allows you to have better boundaries. I get very stressed lending clothes. Like, did I get that back? Let me write that down.
And for some people, it's not a big deal. I just know it's not my thing. It just doesn't feel right for me. So interesting.
Books. Sharing books. I used to do that all the time and found that was a huge stress.
You don't always get a book back.
I was told by someone, only lend the books that you're willing to gift.
Yeah, because they won't come back. I'm thinking of a few books that people.
I know. But yeah, I had a reading because I get readings done by other people all the time, and it was interesting. And this lady was using something called human design as well, which I swear is based on astrology, but numerology and all this other stuff as well. And she was like, this was my big insight this year for myself. She's like, do you love watching TV and eating your meals? And I was like, yes, that's like my favorite thing in the whole world is to eat a meal while being entertained, and everything naturopathic and everything is like, be present with your food, be aware. And she's like, no, you have this part of you that has so much more joy. She's like, be careful of your portions, but with eating, and it's part of your relax is this whole thing. She's like, not scrolling on the computer, not doing this, but if you want to watch a movie or whatever, it gave me permission. And now I'm like, okay, I'm turning on the TV for dinner.
I love
terrible. It's so stupid, but it gave me so much joy.
Yes.
Because every time I did it, I beat myself up over, I know naturopathically this is not good.
And isn't that crazy? Because then by feeling stressed about it, you're probably creating more damage than if you were just like, no, I'm going to fully milk the joy here. That's so good for you.
Yeah. And it's funny, since I got told that, I find I'm more aware of what I'm eating as I'm eating, and I won't go back for more, like you'll talk about being unconscious while you're eating, and then I go back for more, go back for treats. It's kind of stopped me because I've just relaxed into it. I don't know. It's been interesting.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so great.
And stupid, but there you go.
Well, if we're not trying to find ways to enjoy our lives more and we're not here to have fun, what are we here for at the end of the day? Okay. Got to take care of ourselves. We've got to have a good time. And I think that's a nice note for us to wrap up on. But thank you so much, Kira. That was amazing. Oh
my God. It was so fun being on. Thank you for having me.
We'll have to have you back soon.
Thank you for listening. We have reached the end of this episode. If you enjoy this podcast and you find it helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would hit subscribe or share this episode on your Instagram stories and make sure you tag @Georgie the Naturopath. But that is all for today. Please be kind to yourselves. Know that you are enough and you are exactly where you need to be.